Hello, hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for tuning in. It's your girl Nwabi, and I hope you do not leave without pressing the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. If you're not new to my channel, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you all enjoy today's video. It's another Beauty in the Binge where I talk about whatever TV show or movie that I am currently binging, and I am doing a makeup look that is inspired by said TV show. So for today's Beauty in the Binge, I am talking about Euphoria. If you have not heard about Euphoria, what rock are you living under? Euphoria is basically the new wave that is hitting or that is holding HBO Max. It's 2 years that we waited for season 2 because I think Euphoria premiered in 2019. Wait, let me Google. And we've been waiting 2021 the whole year. A new season didn't come out, so a new season has come out, obviously season 2, but I'm not going to be talking about season 2. I will be basically talking about season 1, and I will be reviewing the show because there's season 2 and because I want to share whether or not you should watch it. So if you are excited for that, tune in. Before we get started, I would just like to emphasize on the trigger warning that I did put before I started this video, because guys, when it comes to the subject matter that is discussed and that is portrayed in this series, it's very triggering. Like, it's very triggering, especially if you're a person who suffers from mental health issues, who suffers from depression, anxiety, and such. This is a triggering TV show. So let's discuss the premise, because I want to break down Euphoria into the premise. I want to break down the characters and get into some of the relationships, and then I want to break down the series as a whole as to what I feel about it and some of the issues that I may have with the series, and also my thoughts, basically, like final thoughts and so forth. So the premise of this series is basically we follow a high schooler called Rue. It's showing us the ups and downs of a high schooler, especially a high schooler who suffers from mental health illnesses. So Rue suffers from bipolar disorder, and she's also a drug addict, and we follow basically her journey, and we basically follow other high schoolers' journeys, which I'm going to break down when I am discussing the characters. So the series is heavy. As I said, this is a very tough place to begin with, but we follow Rue, who meets Jules, and Jules is a transgendered young woman who's also in high school, and basically this is based in high school and all these kids in high school and all the issues, guys, I don't know how to say that word, but it's basically the issues that adolescents and kids who are basically just out of puberty, because they are all 17 years old in this series, and kids who are basically just out of puberty and the adolescent issues that they go through. Is it a great portrayal of high school? I don't know. I can't really say, because my experience in high school was definitely not so hectic, and I understand some of the issues that these high scholars go through, but part and parcel of what I do want to discuss is how this could have been in a different setting, because there's a whole lot of problematic situations happening here. There's kind of the whole grooming situation, which happens with one of the characters' dads and Jules. Jules is Rue's new best friend whom she meets in high school, and Jules is a new girl in this high school. She's a transgendered female, and obviously as someone who is in the LGBTQ plus community, Jules kind of struggles with her femininity and she struggles, not really struggles, she doesn't really struggle with her femininity, let me not lie, but kind of part of her self-image and her femininity comes from being accepted by straight males. And like one of the first scenes we see in this series is Jules hooking up with an old man, a very old man, who is gonna turn out to be a father of one of the high scholars, one of the characters whom I'm going to be discussing. So it's centered around that. So it's centered around Rue and Jules and their relationship and how they navigate their relationship and how they navigate their thing. And we see the journey of Rue. And Rue is a drug addict, so we basically see the life that Rue lives as a drug addict, the ups and downs of being a drug addict, and also someone who suffers from mental health, because in the first episode we see Rue coming back from rehab because she had overdosed and her younger sister had found her. So basically we are watching Rue's life and all these things that these high scholars go through. Now comes my first issue with this. This could have all happened with kids in college. Kids in college suffer from mental health issues. Kids in college suffer from dealing with addiction and dealing with abusive relationships. Like, this show gives me the over-sexualization of teenagers that happens a lot. And this brought up the question for me as to who is the show made for? Because you would assume that a show that has a premise based on high schoolers is for an audience kind of like in high school. Like, you think 16-17-year-olds are going to be watching this show. That's the first thing that I go to. When I see a high school show, as much as I'm gonna watch it, I'm gonna watch it, child. One thing about me, my weakness is high school based TV shows. I am gonna watch it. So when I see a high school based or a high school focused TV show, I'm assuming it's for a young audience. Even though that was cleared and clarified by Zendaya, who plays Rue, that was cleared and clarified, I think, this year in season 2, because season 2's first episode was hectic, but I'm not gonna get into that. But it was cleared by this year. And granted, the people who are playing these high scholars and 17-year-olds are like 30 years, 25 years, 26 years in real life. So them portraying sexual activities on TV is not so frowned upon, because it's not like they took 16-year-old actors and actresses to come and have these gruesome and very explicit scenes on TV. So I had questions at first when I first watched Euphoria as to who is this show made for, because it's very explicit content, especially when it comes to the sexual side, because like it's very gruesome. It's like, was this sex scene necessary to tell the story or to portray the story? Did this sex scene have to be so obscene? Did it have to be so hectic? But anyway, so that is the show. It basically shows us Rue's journey and everyone else's, all the other characters, because Rue, as much as Rue is the main character, the other characters don't get left behind. They also have their own stories. So it gives us an image, or rather gives us or shows us the portrayal of what high scholars go through and the ups and downs and the challenges. And one thing about these children, abafundi, they just go to school, because we never see them in class. We never see them in class. Are they learning? We do not know. At this point, I don't even think we care, but that is basically what the show is about. So it gives a portrayal of what high scholars go through and the questions high scholars probably have, and it doesn't focus or center on that, but it highlights the issues that high scholars could go through. And I definitely support that, and I definitely enjoy that. But Could it have been in college? Yes. I think it could have been in college. It could have been a setting in college where these kids are in college. Maybe they just got out of high school. How come, like, how could they not be like 19 years old instead of 17-year-olds? Like, I'm gonna go into another issue that I had when it comes to this explicit sexual content these kids are portraying and these kids are showing when I'm discussing another character. But I feel like all of this could have been set in college instead of high school. But that's probably one of the only problems that I have with Euphoria as a whole. But as a premise, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I really think that the storytelling is really good. It really portrays mental health issues. It gives like an awareness to mental health issues in like explicit detail, in a way in which some of us didn't know. And it like really, I don't want to say educational because it's a TV show, but it kind of gives you an idea of what people go through, especially when they go through really tough mental health issues such as depression. And it shows us a great portrayal of mental health and how young adults are kind of like winging it when it comes to dealing with said mental health. It really, as a premise and the subject matters that is being portrayed and discussed, I definitely think that it is a great portrayal of that, and I give it props for that. It's great storytelling, and it also highlights the problems and the things that people who are currently going through addiction, especially drug addiction, go through, like how Rue is able to go ask for her friend to pee in a cup for her to test the drug test so that the drug test comes out negative. So it's that type of deal, and I actually enjoy the premise of the show and what the show is actually about. Now I want to go break down the characters. So when it comes to the characters, I want to start off with our main character Rue, who suffers from all these mental health issues. She suffers from depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and I think OCD, and she's also an addict. So the disease puts her in a very selfish position. I feel like her addiction really puts her in a very weird position, especially when it comes to interactions with others. Actually, in the first episode where she goes to a party, she knows she's an addict, but she goes to a high school party where she knows that she's going to be surrounded and she's going to bump into drugs, which is what she's addicted to, because I think she's addicted to opioids, which the addiction stems from her stealing her father's meds, and her father had passed on. So she started taking her father's meds when her father was still sick in his sick bed. She started opioids and she got on that high. So she basically takes opioids because I think she's addicted to opioids. And she's actually great as a main character. I really think that Rue as a character is absolutely amazing. And she takes us through the highs and lows of suffering from mental health and being an addict. Because she does go through a period where she actually is clean. And then something happens and she loses all of her progress. She actually relapses. And that basically shows us exactly what being a drug addict is, or an addict to any sort of narcotics. Because even being an alcoholic, you have that thing of being up and down where you're clean and then next thing you know, you're no longer clean. So she takes us through that, and she gives us like a 3D, a dimensional look at being a person who suffers from mental health issues at a young age, because her diagnoses for her mental health issues were diagnosed when she was very young. And she also gives us a show on the complexities of grief, because I think that as much as she has not acknowledged it yet, some of her addiction stems from grieving her dad, because she had to deal with her dad being sick, I think from cancer, at a young age and right in front of her. So I think some of that is showing the complexity of how it is to be dealing with grief. And as a character, I think Rue, she's not wholesome. She's a complicated character. She's a real big complication, but I think she's portrayed very well. And in in the story, she's actually quite great. Like, she's a great character. Then I want to move on to Jules. Jules is, as I said, a transgendered woman, and she's basically dealing with being feminine and having her femininity validated she's dealing with the issue of having her femininity, of needing actually her femininity being validated by straight men. Like, I think it's something of if straight men want me as a transgendered woman, then I can really feel like a feminine woman. I cannot express, or I cannot voice out those feelings because I am not a transgendered woman, obviously. So I don't know how those feelings come about, but she portrays that and she shows us that. And when it comes to Jules, I feel like Jules, I rewatched season 1. I watched it like when it came out, and then I rewatched it before season 2 came out, so because I needed like a refresher on basically what happened in season 1. And I feel like Jules, for me, at some stage was kind of manipulative towards Rue, in the sense that when she was hung up, or rather when she was like feeling so in love with this guy she met online, she hardly had time for Rue, even though Rue was kind of like reaching out. And then when shit hit the fan, she wants to be around Rue. I don't know, that was the vibe she was giving me. But at the same time, she's also going through her own things, so I kind of get her. And also part of the story also gives us an idea of how, not really an idea, but it also gives us a look into how young queer kids are always groomed in the said community. Because I do know that it is an issue when it comes to young queer kids and also young girls, when it comes to older men sexually grooming them, and how she goes on these pages and she matches with these guys in order to get relationships, basically. But also at the same time, she does enter into a relationship with Rue, and that kind of gives us some sort of cute lightheartedness in the midst of all of the heaviness, because this show is very heavy. I don't want to lie, it's very heavy. So Rue and Jules's relationships is basically like gives us some bit of lightheartedness, even though that relationship also triggered Rue, because Rue, I think, I don't want to say got codependent, but she does relapse because of something that happens between them near the end. So you get what I mean? And moving on from Jules, there's Maddie. Maddie's sweet. I think Maddie is like that sweet bully. She's got like a very sweet, she's got sweetness to her, even though she's like the popular girl, and she's got like bully-ish tendencies. I don't want to say bully-ish because she doesn't bully anyone in the show, but she's, you know, she's got that she's a popular pretty girl, basically. She's that role and she plays it to perfection. And I do have a little issues with Maddie, because I do think she does go onto the manipulative side of things, because her relationship, I think that's something I would need to touch on. She accepts toxicity because she knows she wants to gain something out of it. So she accepts toxicity, and I think she thinks that's the only way, or that's the only love that she can get in order to get nice things, because she accepts toxicity with her man, Nate Jacobs, whom we are going to discuss. But she accepts kind of like the toxicity of her and Nate's relationship, because she knows she's going to get something out of it, because she wants luxury. And also, as I said, there's a lot of daddy issues in this series, and these daddy issues aren't just with the girls. Even the guys have major daddy issues when it comes to this series, because child, everyone's father is the worst. I don't think there's a father that's not that great, except for Jules's dad, because Jules's dad is quite cool. Jules's dad is quite cool, but everyone else's dad is honestly the worst. And also, obviously not Rue's, because Rue's dad passed away, but him passing away and him being sick kind of raised that kind of daddy issue, grief issue with Rue. But everyone else, major daddy issues. Wena Cassie, wena Kat, wena Maddie, Akomdu, who just doesn't suffer from daddy issues. It's even Maddie, because she sees the life her mom's lives, and they are in the Latinx community, and I think her dad is Caucasian, but she sees the life her mom lived, especially with her dad being like a deadbeat who stays in the house, because her dad is like a deadbeat who stays in the house, and she feels like she doesn't deserve a life like that. She deserves much better than that when it comes to life. So she's willing to accept anything in order to live that life. You get what I mean? But anyway, so that's Maddie. She is very manipulative, because her and Nate play a lot of manipulative games. She's always like, they're always trying to make each other jealous. It's just weird vibes, and it's vibes that I don't fucks with. But it also shows us how in high school we accept the love that we get. That's Maddie. And then I want to move on to Cassie. You see Cassie, that girl. Oh, Cassie girl. Oh, by the way, guys, I've got my notebook here because I don't want to be all over the place. I want to know what I'm talking about. Cassie. Cassie's a mess and a half. She's a mess and a half. I feel like Cassie's those girls who are very much addicted to love and being loved, because child, the things that she goes through in order to get love, and that's also part of the daddy issues, because even her, she's like, I don't want to say she's not messy in season 1, but like she goes through so much, and I feel like she also seeks validation from men and being loved, because as soon as her boyfriend, who kind of did her dirty as well, as soon as McKay, her boyfriend, kind of neglects her or doesn't give her the time of day, she's gonna go find another guy to mess around with and flirt with, just to, you know, get that I'm loved type of feeling that she's kind of not getting from McKay right now, which is kind of weird, girl, because like life is not about that. You get what I mean? But she's that girl, and she's, I think, her dad abandoning her, and she tries to because each episode, I think each episode of season 1 basically focuses on each character and their issues and where their issues stem from. So I think in Cassie's episode, it highlighted how her father got addicted to drugs and abandoned her and her family basically. So it shows where her issues stem from, and how, as much as she tried to portray this perfection or perfect her dad still lived. So I think for her, male validation comes from that, and she's addicted to being loved or feeling love or the illusion of love, and she uses her body for it, because she realized, I think that also comes from grooming in a sense, because I think she started realizing when she was getting a little bit older how the males in her family, and you know, those uncles who are now always praising her and talking about how she would be a great wife, and it was just weird, like those vibes, those very weird vibes, like those uncles, you know, those uncles who are kind of like peeping toms, who are always touching you like, oh, khulile ngokuntombi, now namabele. It's those kind of uncles, which are very weird vibes. But anyway, so I feel like she realized that, okay, using her body to get love is, and using her body to stay, or for that person or for that man to stay in love with her is the way to go, because she's that girl who sends a lot of nudes, who I think there's a sex tape of her, which is effed up in a sense, because that sex tape was shared without her consent. It's kind of like revenge porn, and that's in no way her fault. Don't get me wrong, her sex tape or her whatever thing that she was shared of her, it's in no way her fault that that got out. But the pattern that she portrays, her character portrays, is how she uses her body to get love, or to try and keep the love. In that sense, I think that's the best way I can describe her. So then we have Kat, and Kat is the resident fat girl in the series, because we always have to have that. I think Euphoria kind of plays on the character trope stereotypes when it comes to high schoolers, but it doesn't play on in a sense where it's like highlighted, okay, this is why you're in the show, because you're fat and you're here to show fat people issues. No, it just portrays them, it portrays them in a good way. I think Kat is she's, in terms of the story, she basically goes through desirability issues. She is the big girl, and she doesn't find herself desirable, especially considering the fact that as soon as she had gotten fat, this guy friend of hers in primary school basically stopped being friends with her because she was fat. So she goes through those issues and desirability issues, and she was also a virgin at the start of the series, but she feels insecure about being a virgin, so she kind of gets rid of it. And I don't think that's what she wanted, and she does this in the first episode, and I kind of don't think that's what she wanted, but she kind of does. And well, okay, like, it's your body, do what you need to do with it. I really wouldn't judge her for that. But here comes my issue with Kat, and this is something that I said I was going to highlight at the beginning of this video. Kat gets into this camera girl situation where she dresses up. Okay, she changes her look completely after having sex. She changes up her look, and she's like this badass bondage queen wearing corsets. Even my look today, not my makeup look, but my look in terms of what I'm wearing at the top, is inspired by Kat. She gives this badass boss bitch empowerment moment. But if that was it, that would have been great. That would have been absolutely amazing. Then I'm like, okay, props to Euphoria for giving the fat girl her power moment. But no, that's not it. She does this, and then she sees, I don't know how she sees, or how she finds out about how girls can be cam girls. They can dance for money to people who are basically jerking off to them, dancing for money. And she basically does that, and she sees how many likes she gets, and then all of a sudden she gets her validation, or she feels desirable in that sense. And using a minor to be a camera girl as a message of empowerment is not it. Okay, editor Nwabi in the building. I just wanted to highlight that I forgot to say when I was making this video that it would have been better if Euphoria had addressed the issue with Kat being a minor and dancing for older men who are jerking off and stripping for older men who are jerking off in the internet. Granted, she is wearing a mask so no one can see her face on the internet, but they did not address this, and the only way in which they showed how this is not okay is the fact that Kat didn't get any happiness or any confidence boost after doing this. In fact, she felt uncomfortable in all the scenes. She looked uncomfortable, especially in the scene where she does strip. But I do have to say that it would have been better if Euphoria had addressed this issue and shown that, okay, this is not okay behavior for a minor to be doing this on the internet. And I think that is the issue that I had with it. It wasn't giving what was supposed to be given. It didn't give what it wasn't giving. Her making fun of a guy with a small penis jerking off is not empowering in any sense at all. It's not giving the bad bitch moment that it was trying to give, or it was trying to portray. That, what do you guys think? If you've watched Euphoria, comment down below and tell me what you think about Kat becoming a camera girl in that montage she's a fat bitch empowered moment. Want to discuss McKay. McKay is Cassie's boyfriend, and McKay has a lot of issues. He deals with his own issues because he realizes that he's probably not gonna be that great in football because of his sizing. He's really not that big. He's not big enough for pro football, and that has been his dream, to be a pro footballer. So it's kind of like a shock into his system because it has been his dream, and he kind of like doesn't know what to do now. And he's also very insecure. He's got his own insecurities, especially when it comes to Cassie and all these videos he's seeing of her. So he basically goes through the most when it comes to that, but he also does Cassie dirty, in my opinion, because he could have discussed his issues with Cassie instead of being weird about it, especially in the bedroom. And him and Cassie go through something, and I'm really of the opinion that he could have supported Cassie more instead of dismissing Cassie the way that he did. And it was just weird, and I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling McKay. But another issue I have with regards to McKay is the fact that he was assaulted by, I don't know, his frat brothers or something, but it was a really weird assault in front of Cassie, and that was brushed off, and that wasn't really addressed in the show. That could have been addressed greatly in how dangerous and how harmful hazing is in college and high school situation. I think that that's something that could have been addressed and discussed in a way. But when it comes to McKay, I don't have much to say other than that he was kind of a shitty boyfriend to Cassie, and he could have done better. And hopefully, if he is in season 2, because I don't think he was in season 2, he wasn't. Oh, he was in the first episode, but he wasn't in the second episode. So hopefully, if he does come back for more episodes in season 2, he is a better person. Then the last character that I want to discuss is Nate Jacobs. What a horrible person. When it comes to a villain, this is it. Him. He is the villain. He's the perfect villain. He is horrible. He is the worst. He is the embodiment of white toxic masculinity, white toxic males. And he's basically what happens when males, especially white males, aren't held accountable for their actions. They are coddled, and Nate is horrible. He's a horrible character. He's a horrible boyfriend. He's got a fragile masculine, like he's got fragile masculinity, like so deep and fragile deep within him. And he also has some issues, and he's also what happens to kids and the after effects, or the mental effects it has on kids to be exposed to pornographic content at a young age, because it's very messy in Doganate, but he bumps into pornographic content of his dad, and basically like at I think 9 years old, and he basically goes through that. Like, I hate him as a character. He's also abusive, I think emotionally and physically abusive. Like, he's just a horrible character, and like he's basically what happens when white males are coddled. There's no other way I could describe him. Like, there's no other way I could talk about him. Like, he's honestly the worst, and he's toxic. Like, he's very, very toxic, and he's got this weird superhero complex where he does horrible things in the guise of I'm saving you, which is kind of weird. but like he is horrible. Nate Jacobs is honestly the worst, and he portrays white male toxicity to perfection. Jacob Elordi in that role, perfect, and the storytelling around him is perfect. My final thoughts, as a story, as I said before, Euphoria is quite great as a story, and it tells the complexities of growing up quite well, and it shows it very well. The cinematography is absolutely amazing. Like, the director of that show is perfection. The cinematography is great. Like, I haven't seen cinematography that great since The Handmaid's Tale. That's how great Euphoria is. Euphoria's cinematography is quite great. I don't like the lighting most of the time because it's always dark, but it's actually quite great in terms of cinematography, and it's a good show with great acting. The actors in the show really do a great job, but I do feel it is kind of overly sexual and very explicit, and it over sexualizes teenagers. I feel like, yes, teenagers can be sexual beings, but I don't think that explicit. I really don't think that teenagers, I don't know, maybe I wasn't that type of teenager, but I really don't think that that's the image that teenagers currently have. But I really don't know, but I do have an issue with them over sexualizing teenagers, and I do really think that some of the sex scenes or the explicitity of the sexual scenes are very like much for shock value and shock grab, you know, when there's like a lot of shock value, like, oh my word, this just happened, you know, let's overly expose, or let's aggregate people so that people are talking about the show type of vibe. Like there's a lot of shock value, but it is a great show. I would give it an 8 out of 10, especially for its storytelling and its handling of very mature, complex issues. It's just that my take on the over sexualization of teenagers, that's my issue with the show. But otherwise, that is my Beauty and the Binge, guys. That is my opinion. I think it's 8 out of 10, and it's definitely bingeable. I really think you should be checking Euphoria out. Comment down below and tell me, have you watched Euphoria? If you have, did you enjoy it? Are you enjoying season 2? If you have not, will you be watching Euphoria? And what do you think of Euphoria as soon as you've watched it? Go watch Euphoria, come back onto this video, comment down below and tell me what you think of the series. Thank you so much for tuning into my video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I enjoy shooting it. This is my final look. I'm channeling Rue's poster look with the dripping glitter tears, and then this is what I'm wearing. I'm wearing my corset that I got from Shein. That is to just like channel, oh god, that is to just like channel my inner cat. So that's what I'm wearing, but my look is this, and that is the finale, guys. That's the final look. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please do not leave without subscribing and pressing that notification bell. Until next time, guys, ciao.